What if she was never your soulmate, but your sedative? It didn't begin with love. It began with absence, not hers, yours. A space inside you, hollow, loud, echoing, the kind of space you don't talk about in daylight. You met her not because you were whole, but because you were empty. She smiled. You melted. She said your name like it mattered. She looked at you like you were the story she was waiting to read. But what if none of that was love? What if you were just starving and she looked like a feast? Love should be a choice, a conscious movement of two whole beings. But this wasn't that. This was compulsion, an emotional hijack dressed in poetry. There's a reason her touch felt like oxygen, because somewhere in your psyche you were suffocating. And when she showed up, it wasn't affection you felt, it was relief. That's anesthesia. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You didn't choose her, your shadow did. The part of you that's still 5 years old, still waiting for someone to see you, still terrified of being alone. And when she looked at you, that boy inside whispered, finally. You called it chemistry. But it was recognition. Two traumas meeting for the first time and calling it home. She was not your cure. She was your mirror. The one who showed you who you thought you were when someone finally stayed. You told yourself, this is love. But it was just the moment your emptiness mistook attention for salvation. What you loved was how she made you forget yourself, not in the poetic soul-merging sense, but in the panicked, please don't make me face my own void kind of way. You see, most people think love is about finding someone who completes them. That's the fantasy. But fantasies are just trauma reenactments with better lighting. Real love doesn't complete you, it confronts you. It says, I see your wound, I won't fix it, I won't fill it, but I'll walk beside you while you heal it yourself. But you weren't ready for that. You didn't want a partner. You wanted an escape hatch, someone to distract you from the silence inside your own skull. Jiddu Krishnamurti wrote, the ability to observe without evaluating is the highest form of intelligence. But you didn't observe her. You projected. You saw what you wanted to see, not who she was. And that's what makes this kind of love so intoxicating. It doesn't require truth. It only requires longing. And longing is easier to maintain than intimacy. You were drawn to the illusion, not the individual. To the feeling of being wanted, not the act of truly knowing. That's why she haunted you when she left. Not because she took something from you, but because she stopped being your mirror. And without that reflection, who were you? She became the story you told yourself about why you finally mattered. The proof that you were lovable, that someone saw you and didn't run. But it wasn't her presence that gave you worth. It was your own hunger screaming loud enough to make anything feel like a feast. Erich Fromm said, to love without knowing how to love wounds the person we love. And you didn't know how, not really. Because love requires presence, and presence requires wholeness. And you were fragmented, held together by hope, attraction, and the fear of being alone with your own mind. When she was there, you didn't have to listen to the emptiness, the critic, the failure, the father you never pleased, the childhood wound you never bandaged. She was a noise loud enough to drown the silence. You mistook the silence going quiet for peace. But it was just avoidance in a prettier dress. You didn't love her, you needed her. There's a difference. One is a gift, the other is a survival mechanism. One says, I choose you even though I don't need you. The other says, I choose you because I can't face myself. This is not a condemnation. This is not shame. This is revelation, because once you see it, truly see it, you can begin to love differently. But you have to start with yourself, with the parts you've abandoned, the boy who never felt enough, the man who hides behind humor or charm or stoicism because vulnerability is too dangerous. She awakened the feeling of being enough, but that feeling was already inside you, waiting for you to stop outsourcing it. You thought she was your missing piece, but you were never missing. You were just hiding. And now that she's gone, maybe it's time to finally look. You didn't love her. You needed her to escape yourself. You thought it was her beauty, her mystery, the way she touched your arm or stared through you like she knew your soul. But what captivated you wasn't her, it was what she awakened inside of you. A forgotten feeling, a version of you that felt real, seen, desired, alive. And that's what made her so dangerous, not because she hurt you, but because she became your medicine. your high, your escape. And that's what every addict says about their favorite drug. It's not love when your nervous system is hijacked, when your breath shortens at her silence, when a missed text feels like abandonment and a smile feels like salvation. That's not connection. That's addiction. That's the child in you, still looking for the mother who never emotionally arrived, still praying that this time someone will stay, no matter what. Still hoping that love means someone will save you from yourself. But here's the bitter truth no one wants to face. You weren't in love with her. You were in love with the person you became when you were with her. The confidence, the ease, the feeling of being chosen, not because you earned it, but because you were enough just by existing. She made you feel worthy, and you mistook that borrowed worth as proof of love. She wasn't your partner. She was your mirror. A reflection of everything you hoped to be, projected onto a woman who never agreed to carry your soul. Erich Fromm warned us, people think they want love, but what they really want is to be loved, to be desired, to be validated. That's not love. That's narcissism. You didn't want to know her. You wanted her to know you, to validate you, to erase your loneliness by her presence. That's not love. That's emotional colonization. And when she stopped performing the role you cast her in, when she said no, when she didn't respond the way your fantasy demanded, your pain wasn't heartbreak. It was withdrawal. Because love doesn't leave you shattered when it ends. Addiction does. The Greeks had a name for this. Mania. Love as possession. A fire that consumes. Not love that liberates, but love that imprisons. You didn't want her freedom. You wanted her to need you as much as you needed her. To make the obsession mutual so it would feel noble. But there is nothing noble about losing yourself in someone else's image. Carl Jung spoke about this trap. When a man has not integrated his anima, the inner feminine, he projects it onto women. He doesn't see them as people. He sees symbols, angels, witches, mothers, saviors. He confuses the outer woman with his inner longing. That's why she felt like destiny. She wasn't just a person. She was the embodiment of the feminine you repressed in yourself. Your creativity, your vulnerability, your longing to be held. And for a moment, she made you feel whole. But it was never her job to complete you. It was your task to reclaim what you abandoned in yourself. So when she walked away or stopped being perfect, it wasn't just heartbreak. It was the collapse of your illusion. Your inner split finally showing its cracks. You didn't lose her. You lost the fantasy. The belief that someone else could fix what you refused to face. You blamed her for changing. But the truth is, she never changed. You just started seeing her instead of your projected dream. You wanted her to keep acting, to keep performing the sacred role you cast without asking, to keep reflecting your worth so you wouldn't have to find it yourself. That isn't love. That's self-abandonment disguised as devotion. But no one teaches this. They tell us to find the one. To chase butterflies, to believe that pain is proof of passion, that jealousy is romance, that obsession is poetry. So we keep confusing intensity for intimacy, possession for passion, wounding for depth, because the soul-crushing truth is, most of us don't want real love. We want to be relieved of loneliness, relieved of self-doubt, relieved of our own unbearable silence, and we call that relief love. But love isn't relief, it's revelation. It reveals your shadows, your fear of abandonment, your need for control, your incapacity to be present without losing your identity. It shows you where you still ache, where you still chase, where you still pretend. It shows you that until you love yourself fully, you will use others to do it for you, and call the arrangement romantic. She's gone now, not just physically, but symbolically. The version of her that lived in your mind, that ideal, that echo of perfection you clung to, that ghost, is finally silent. And now, in the wreckage of what you called love, there is only one thing left: you. But not the curated version, not the man she saw. Not the man she saw, not the man you wanted to be in her eyes, no. What's left is what you've been running from all along. Your fear, your ache, your confusion, your emptiness. The silence that used to terrify you, it's now your only companion. And for the first time, you don't run, because there's nowhere left to go. No more distractions, no more fantasy to fixate on, no more woman to use as a mirror, only the raw reality of your inner world. And that's when the real work begins. This is the part no one glamorizes. No one writes poems about this silence. No one posts quotes about staring into your own abyss. But this is where men are either destroyed or reborn. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You thought she was your fate. She was just your unconscious in disguise. She was everything you repressed, your longing, your softness, your inner chaos, your hunger to be loved. She was never the cause of your pain. She was the activation, a sacred trigger, a divine detonation, an alchemical mirror. And now that the spell is broken, you begin to see it clearly. You weren't seeking a relationship. You were seeking a rescue. She just happened to look like salvation. But she couldn't save you from yourself. And that's the wound you now sit with. The child in you still cries out, if I'm not loved, am I even real? If I'm not desired, do I matter? If I'm alone, will I disappear? And for once, you don't distract him. You don't drink it away, scroll it away, flirt it away. You just listen. And what you hear is haunting. Because beneath the pain is not just loss, but a revelation. You have never truly loved. Not her. Not yourself, not anyone. You have only ever needed. Gabor Mate explains this beautifully. Most of what we call love is actually a desperate attempt to fill a void left in childhood. You weren't in love. You were in need. You needed someone to make you feel enough. You needed someone to give you purpose. You needed someone to hold the burden of your unlived life. And now, stripped of that illusion, you finally see the real wound. It was never about her. It was about you. Your disconnection from your soul, your fear of being forgotten, your addiction to validation, your refusal to feel the raw weight of your own existence. But here's the beautiful tragedy. That pain you've avoided for so long isn't here to punish you. It's here to wake you up. Because suffering is not your enemy, it's your invitation. Nietzsche said, one must still have chaos in oneself to give birth to a dancing star. You are the chaos. You are the pain. You are the unlived life waiting to be born. And in that wreckage, something stirs. Not hope, not yet, but something even more powerful, responsibility. Not the masculine kind the world romanticizes, not duty or provision or stoic control, but the deeper kind, the responsibility to meet yourself, to stop outsourcing your healing, to stop making women your medicine, to stop believing that love is something done to you. No one can rescue you, not your soulmate, not your therapist, not even God. Only you can walk into your own fire and retrieve the part of you you've been hiding from, the part that doesn't need to be loved to feel real, the part that isn't afraid to be alone, the part that doesn't confuse intensity with intimacy. That man, the one who faces the mirror without flinching, is the man she could never meet because he hadn't been born yet. You were still an echo, a projection, a boy wearing a man's mask. But now, stripped bare, no applause, no affection, no fantasy to sustain you, you are forced to become real. And that, ironically, is when you finally become capable of love. Not the needy, consuming kind, but the sacred kind. The kind that doesn't possess, the kind that doesn't beg. The kind that doesn't collapse when she leaves. The kind that loves her, not because she fills your emptiness, but because you're no longer afraid to be empty. You used to think love would save you. Now you know, it was never love that you were chasing. It was anesthesia, distraction, escape. You weren't drawn to her soul. You were drawn to what she silenced in you, the panic, the doubt, the hollowness you carried like a phantom limb. She was never your healing. She was your drug. And like all drugs, the high fades. And when it does, you're left sifting through the ashes, asking, who am I without this pain disguised as passion? The answer is uncomfortable, because for most of your life, your identity wasn't built on wholeness. It was built on lack. You weren't someone who could give love. You were someone who begged for it in sophisticated ways, with charm, with gifts, with obsession, with need disguised as romance. And now that the illusion has died, you're exposed. But you're also free, no longer a prisoner to the unconscious contracts you signed with your wounds. No longer repeating the same archetypal drama where you play the savior or the victim and she becomes the fantasy or the villain. That cycle is broken. You've begun to see women not as saviors or sirens, but as mirrors. Some mirrors show you your light, others your shadow. She showed you your dependence, and for that, you should thank her, because the only way to truly love someone is to no longer need them to complete you. That's the paradox. You must first stop needing love before you can finally offer it. Erich Fromm wrote in The Art of Loving, Immature love says, I love you because I need you. Mature love says, I need you because I love you. But most people never get that far. They never reach mature love because they never grow up emotionally. They confuse feeling with knowing. They confuse longing with truth. They spend decades repeating the same story, chasing the intensity of falling, mistaking collapse for connection, and labeling their codependency as passion. But you've begun to wake up. And with that awakening comes a terrifying realization. Love is not the answer. You are. That's the truth no one wants to hear, because it demands that you grow. It demands that you take ownership of your inner world. It demands that you stop making your suffering someone else's responsibility. The moment you realize that the woman was never the solution, but only the surface of a much deeper wound, you are forced to look within. And when you do, you find something you didn't expect. Not brokenness, not shame, not some unworthy version of yourself. You find a quiet strength, a capacity to love without losing yourself, a capacity to stay when it's right and walk away when it's not, a capacity to see clearly, feel deeply, and choose wisely. This is what Jung meant by integration, not killing the shadow, but becoming conscious of it. He wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. You are not meant to become perfect. You are meant to become whole, to love and still have boundaries, to feel deeply but not drown, to desire but not depend, to give without collapsing. And once you become that, no woman can manipulate you. No fantasy can enslave you. No wound can dictate your destiny. You are no longer a boy chasing mother energy in the body of a lover. You are a man, fully present, fully aware. And from this place, love becomes something entirely different. Not a drug, not a rescue mission, not a possession, but a gift. You can love her as she is, not as you need her to be. You can stay without clinging. You can leave without hate. You can desire without needing, because you are no longer running from yourself. You've looked into the abyss and found not death, but rebirth. No one told you it would hurt this much. No one told you the price of real awakening was your innocence. No one told you that love, when it's pure, asks for nothing and offers everything. But now you know. And maybe, you're finally ready. Not for her, not for some future woman, but for you, your life, your soul, your truth. Because now you don't need love to feel alive. You already are. And when you love again, you won't be escaping anything. You'll be sharing everything. If this video stirred something in you, a memory, a regret, a quiet realization, don't just scroll past it. Leave a comment. Let the silence between us become a conversation. And if you're on a path of inner truth where love, pain, and philosophy collide, subscribe. This channel isn't here to entertain your comfort. It's here to disturb your illusions. And maybe that's exactly what you've been needing.